Welcome to the Port City Plate Podcast, presented by Bienville Bites Food Tour. The Port City Plate Podcast, serving up the food, history, and people of Mobile, Alabama, for people who love the Port City. I'm your host, Chris Andrews, and I'm so excited about this next episode on our show today. I'm thrilled to introduce someone who she's changing and reshaping the food scene in our community, and really through our kids. And Karrie Nelson, she is the founder and owner of the Cookery Project. The Cookery Project, they're enlightening kids about the importance of food-related health and just improving skills and knowledge for kids all over the Mobile area. They do cooking classes and field trips and cooking parties and so much more that we're going to talk about. She's also the visionary behind a really fun annual event that we have here in Mobile called the Mobtown Mac Down, and that's a mac and cheese cooking competition that funds the Cookery Project. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. So welcome, Karrie, to the Port City Plate Podcast.
Thank you, Chris, for having me. I was so excited when you reached out.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm really excited. So tell me about yourself and where you grew up and what's your story?
I grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi. I came to school at the University of South Alabama, where I got my undergraduate degree in finance and accounting. And I came here to Mobile, fell in love with it, was close enough to home that I could go home as frequently as I wanted, but I fell in love with Mobile and I never moved back home.
Yeah, came here and never left, huh?
Never left.
I like it. Well, what inspired you to start the Cookery Project?
When my daughter was 9 years old, we were planning out her summer schedule because at the time I was a financial controller, a bean counter, not a bean cooker. And she wanted cooking camp, and that did not exist. And she and I for years had bonded over our meal prep we would do every Sunday, and she was involved, and she'd help plan and grocery shop, and she started off with a little butter knife. And so I was like, that would be cool. She has caught on to my love of cooking. And so I literally took a week of vacation and borrowed wares from Alec Naaman and rented a spot in a art studio. And we had cooking camp. It was my daughter, Sophia, and a couple of her friends, my niece and nephew, and a couple of their friends. And after the camp, my sister-in-law and I were just sharing with friends and family on Facebook, like how cute this was and how much fun it was. And how creative the kids got, because the last day of our camps was and still is always a mystery basket day. We try to use leftovers and things and let them use their imagination and get creative. And plus, by the end of that day, they've baked, they've used a cooktop, they've used a microwave, they've used all the tools. And I started getting texts and emails. When's your next camp? When do you do birthday parties? And I was like, no, I'm a bean counter, not a bean cooker. That was my motto back then. And the next supper rolled around. She wanted to do it again. So I was like, let's do this. So I actually had stored up some of my vacation because I had a feeling this was becoming a thing. So we did 2 weeks of class. We just advertised a little bit on Facebook, and we filled up the classes. I started still working. I started rented a little spot. I hired a couple of instructors. We did some after-school care. We did some birthday parties. We did all the things. And then about our fourth year, four and a half year in, Pratt Patterson, who is the executive director of Wilmer Hall, reached out to me. Our daughters went to school together and still are very good friends. And Pratt was like, I hear you teach cooking lessons. And I was like, kind of. And we talked, of course, I was very familiar with Wilmer Hall, but talked about what their needs were as far as having somebody come in and teach them cooking as a life skill. And of course, I was like, sign me up. I love to do it. Our very first class, I think we had about 14 kids at Wilmer Hall. They age 16 to 24, and all of their situations are very, their backgrounds are very different, but they're all there obviously out of need, right? Not necessarily prepared with the life skills that most of us would get, from our parents, grandparents. And it just went really well. They were super excited about it. As you know, most families, most people bond over food and cooking, and I just very quickly developed a rapport with those kids, and I was invested. And but what made me say, like, I've got to reach all the kids? There was a mom. She was 18. She was at Wilmer Hall. She removed herself from a domestic situation. She was 18 at the time. She had a 3-year-old. And she said, Miss Karrie, I need help. She was like, I love to cook, but I can't get my child to eat vegetables. He's 3 years old. He has not had a vegetable since he was on baby food.
Wow. I
was like, outwardly, I was calm, cool, and collected, but inside, and I still get upset about I was just, my mind was going 90 to nothing, developmental delays, just physical, mental, like all the, like, and she didn't really even understand, like, how bad that was. So I called Pratt. I think I might have waited till the next day, but I think I might have called him that night. We finished about 8 o'clock, and I was like, sign me up. I'm completely invested. We can do this however often you want or need, or their schedule permits, because they're required to be work or in school full time. And of course, they have other life skills that they work on, banking, how to manage a checkbook, how to buy a car, how to do all these things. So what we do for them is just one aspect. And I told Pratt, I don't know anything about running a nonprofit, but so he's been a really big mentor to me. So that was the spark for me.
Yeah.
Fast forward to COVID, it was just really a time where you reflect. You see a lot of good in the world, you see a lot of bad in the world. And I had a 9-to-5 as a financial controller for a local family-owned business. And I was like, I just was compelled to just put my heart and my time, all of my time and my effort, into expanding the Cookery Project. And I did that. I'm a single mom, one income household. I walked away, and I'll tell you what, that was the first time in my life that I felt like I wasn't trying to put a square peg in a round hole. I was on the mission that God wanted me to be on.
Yeah.
And it led me to this wonderful person and this wonderful person and this amazing person. And then here I am, sitting with Chris Andrews. So it was a hard decision to make, but looking back, it was a really good decision.
Yeah, and it's gonna pay off for sure. I know that.
Yeah,
for sure. What was what was kind of the decision that went into becoming a nonprofit instead of a for-profit?
So originally the Cookery was the original, was for profit, and just knowing that the success, for one, partnering with other nonprofits. The Fuse Project has been literally integral to the growth of the Cookery Project. So being able to partner with other nonprofits like the Fuse Project, like Wilmer Hall, like Dumas Wesley, like Impact 100, and being able to know that you don't just have you have the support, right, of the people around you, but it also allows you access to grant funding that makes this all possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's true.
Right.
Yeah, it would be tough to do this, right, as a for-profit business. It's almost impossible.
It would be really hard to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what kind of things do you do when you mentioned some of the nonprofits that you work with? What are some of those things that y'all do together?
So we partner with a couple of community centers, and what we do for them, it depends on their schedule, right, for the most part, but also our resources, because in any nonprofit you kind of ebb and flow, right? So the longest standing that we have is Wilmer Hall. We meet with them at least once a month, and our workshop with them, of course, is very different than a workshop with Dumas Wesley, right? So we've got ages 16 to 24, about half male, half female. Most of the females know how to cook, right? Because that's what they do. And the boys, not so much. I mean, I've had one come in recently, and man, he was scared to death. He was scared. We used ceramic knives with them. He was scared of the knife. He was scared, and he just kept saying, "Miss Karrie, I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to cook." I'm like, sweet pea, that's why we're here, right?
That's it.
Like a lot of us didn't when we started, and so with them, we work with something. One is going to be very easy for them, right? So I don't want to go in there with some crazy long, several ingredient recipes that I know they're not going to try to make again, right? So an example of something that we would make with them, and it was a huge hit. Of course, I love when they come in going, "I don't eat that. I don't like that. I'll make it, but I'm not eating it." And they do it at 24, and they do it at 4 years old. It doesn't matter. I don't like that. So one of the biggest W's for me, the biggest wins was the same little boy, scared of everything. This is about the third time we cooked together. I could just see his confidence, right? So he is vegetarian, and we were making zucchini meatballs with a very lean ground meat and carrots. And I completely forgot that he was vegetarian. So he was like, "Miss Karrie, can I get creative?" Right? So we ran out of tomato paste for the meatballs. So I was like, "Guys, this happens, and when you're in the kitchen, you got to improvise." So I was like, "Who can tell me we're out of tomato paste. We need a little more tomato paste. What do we do?" They were all like, I don't know, and I was like, "Ketchup. I mean, that's all it is ketchup." And so I think introducing the idea of experimenting and substituting and improvising, he was like, "Miss Karrie, can I make vegan meatballs?" Because originally he was just going to make the zucchini and the carrots. And I was like, "Absolutely." I mean, if you could see the confidence, who was that kid that was here just 3 months ago, right? You didn't want to touch the knife, and now you're wanting to experiment. So he called it a meatless meatball. So he made it with breadcrumbs, an egg, and some zucchini, and a little bit of ketchup, because again, we ran out of tomato paste. And he could not wait for those meatless meatballs to come out of the oven. And of course, I was very curious. And then all of them wanted to cut up a meatball and try it, and they were really good. So that's the kind of success stories. It's hard work. I love groceries. I love tools. I do, but I mean, that makes it all worth it. And we do a lot with them with budgeting, right? A lot of the moms are on SNAP benefits. The boys, most of them work, and they're on limited budgets, right? So we talk about one of the things we made, stunk to high heaven, but we made salmon patties. The cheap $1.67, out of the can from the grocery store. Literally the entire building stunk. But I was like, guys, trust me, right? Like we've never made anything gross, and I've never made anything y'all didn't love. I know it stinks, but when we get finished, it's gonna taste like a crab meat patty. So we made them, huge hit. And we usually do a roasted vegetable. I don't remember what it was we did then. But the salmon patties were a huge hit. They were like, this tastes like crab meat. And I was like, trust the process. But let's talk about, and I do this every time we have a class. We just fed 12, 13, 14 adults, right? Because y'all are grown. Salmon patties and roasted carrots. Let's say that's what it was. And I'll ask them, and we always eat together in fellowship, and then they have a leftover. So now they have something to take home for the next day or whenever. So I just fed 14 adults 2 adult-sized meals, and I always have them guess, how much do you think my groceries were? And it's all these crazy numbers. And I'm like, I just fed each of you for $2.27 for that meal.
Wow.
Now, try to take that $2.27 to Popeyes or to McDonald's or to Checkers, right? Like making your own food. And it took us 20 minutes and we were done, right? So I just try to encourage them. It's about making the choices, not just monetarily for them, right? Because they've got to make their money stretch. But it's also about, you just had a good, healthy meal that didn't take any time. You could make many more servings and eat it over the week, right? So we have a boy. This is a sex story for Wilmer Hall, but also for us. He had been cooking with us for some time. He was doing an apprenticeship. He got a job at Airbus, thanks to Wilmer Hall. And he came in that day, and he was so excited. He was, Miss Karrie, I got my job. I was like, I saw that. And he had bought his first pair of new shoes that he has ever owned. He's always had hand-me-downs. It was a pair of Nikes. He was so proud of his job, and he was so proud of his shoes. But he's like, Miss Karrie, that's not even the best part. And I was like, it doesn't get any better than that, right? You're gainfully employed with a really good job. And this was like his last week there. He said, Miss Karrie, I started my job 2 weeks ago. And he said, I haven't eaten at one time. He said, I've brought my lunch to work for 2 solid weeks. Wow. And I've been using the recipes that we've made. I just started bawling my eyes out. I was like, I'm done. My work here is done. So it's things like that it makes it all worth it. And,
that's so cool.
It makes me really know that I'm making a difference. You
right.
know, we're bonding with these kids. So,
what are some other things I know y'all do, like, you know, in addition to working with nonprofits, the field trips and working with the schools? What about some other programs like that?
So our summer camps, for the most part, are service income for us, right? Now, we do have children from DHR, foster care, children that are interested in cooking, but they attend a Title I school or they're on free or reduced lunches. So we generate a lot of income during the summer that allows us to then go and afford free camps for children that can't afford it, and to do the work, continue our work with the Fuse Project and Florence Howard Elementary and Dumas Wesley and all of the other schools that reach out. Now we're involved. One of my favorite churches to work with is Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church and Pastor Bradley. I actually was really nervous because I did an adult class with them, and I'm preparing for it, and I'm thinking, like, what can I possibly teach these people, right? Like, yeah. What can I? Because most of them were women. There were a few men. So I was really, thinking like, wow, how I got to dig deep for this. So I was like, you know what? Just like my kids with Wilmer Hall, I've got to be reasonable. It's got to be something fast, like quick and easy, right? And something that is, they're going to be so impressed with themselves, right? Like you've made this from scratch. But also something that is going to be affordable for them, right? So we want to incorporate that. But also something that, because I always love to hide vegetables. That's when the young girl asked, Miss Karrie, I got to get my child vegetables, I dug in. We had zucchini and meatballs. We had spinach and spaghetti. We had carrots and meatloaf. We had all the vegetables. For years, I hid cauliflower in my mac and cheese. And my family didn't know it until my daughter was old enough that she wanted to cook with me, and then the cat was out of the bag. I would just sit and giggle at Thanksgiving, like, y'all are eating cauliflower and you don't even know it. And my niece and nephews would ask for extra pans of it. So with Mount Sinai Baptist Church, we did a spinach and grilled chicken Alfredo from scratch. And some of these women that have been cooking way longer than me, and I, especially with adults, I say, look, I love to cook. I'm not necessarily a great cook, so don't judge me for how my food tastes. But they were so impressed with themselves. They made fettuccine, they made Alfredo from scratch, right? And then I always throw spinach in anything I can. One of the ladies was like, I don't like spinach. I like any of it. I was like, you won't taste it. Cut it up as small as you want. You won't. It's just for nutrients, right?
Yeah.
That's all it's for. It's pretty and nutrients. Some of those women were so impressed with themselves at how easy it was to make fettuccine Alfredo. They were even more impressed. We had 18 adults. Well, I bought for 30 adults. We ended up with 18 in the class. So for $147, I bought all of the ingredients needed for a penne Alfredo with chicken and spinach. $147 divided by 60 servings, right? Because I always do a serving that we fellowship over and then a serving that they take with them. $4.57 a serving.
Wow.
And they were like, wow. Like, and everybody sees Alfredo as like a fancy dish. So now they're like, I can make this like fancy dish, and it's dirt cheap.
Yep.
It's something you can freeze. You can freeze the Alfredo. You can take out. It's a huge crowd, thing to feed so that was like a win for me, because I was. And then, of course, the pastor after was like, everybody loved it. Like, it was great. They learned something new. He was like, it couldn't have gone better. So it's things like that. I get challenged and I get a little nervous about, but then I do it and I'm like, and again, when you're cooking, when you're in the kitchen, whether it's portable or kitchen at home, you just bond.
That's right.
People bond over food.
Yep. What are some of the things that you tell the kids, especially when it comes to nutritional education? Like, what are some of the things that you tell them?
So one of our big initiatives is what we call traffic light eating. So I'll always start when we have new students or even returning students. We identify our food through traffic light. So what does red mean? Red means stop. Green means go. Yellow means caution. And we categorize. So if green means go, when you've got your ingredients here, what do you think is a food that's really good for you, that you could eat all the time, and that's nourishing your body and making you stronger and smarter and all the things? And they sometimes identify, right? It depends on the age range. Look, the Wilmer Hall kids, I say kids, they're grown. They even will identify, oh, Miss Karrie, we're making this is red light, and I'm like, right? We can do red light sometimes, right? So green, fruits and vegetables, beans, with the exception of refried beans, which happens to be my favorite. Sorry. Yellow light is where it gets a little hairy. That's where some of them get like a little confused. So yellow light is basically your dairies, your cheeses, your milks, your eggs, things that are good for you and that you need, but you might not need at every meal, right? If you have an egg in the morning, you might not put cheese on it. If you have a grilled cheese at lunch, you might not have lasagna loaded with cheese at nighttime, right? So those are the things we just kind of want to take caution and just be aware that I've had a lot of dairy today. And then red light foods, they all know the red light foods, right? McDonald's, French fries, hamburgers, Taco Bell, anything with sugar in it. But the one thing that always kind of surprises most of the population we serve is sodas, right? So each time we work with a group, new or that we're regularly scheduled for, we identify all the ingredients. We made, the last class we had with Dumas Wesley, we made pizza pinwheels. So the program that we do with Dumas Wesley is called our HEAT program. It's Health Equity Advancement Training. And so that is, we have them for a short time after school. It's usually cold serve or bake, but something quick, something we want these kids to expand their palates, try it and go, wow, you know, this was really good, but also something they could make on their own, right? A lot of the kids are latchkey kids, right? They come home in the afternoon, mom's at work, dad's at work, you know, and we encourage them, instead of getting a bag of chips, make you some pizza pinwheels. Those are so much better for you. So we identify, and they start before class even starts. So the turkey pepperoni is green because it's lean. We had a little bit of mozzarella cheese, and they'll say, what's our mozzarella? It's yellow. Our flour tortilla was yellow. We had to put some spinach in there. We had some tomato paste. That's a green because there's no sugar in it. And then all together, we get a little perplexed because then we're like, our pizza pinwheels, what are they? I'm like, they're kind of greenish yellow, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but so what I try to instill is it's about having that alternative, right? So when we identify a red light food, I'm not telling you to never eat it again, right? I'm saying stop and think, have I already had some candy today? You know, did I already have potato chips? You know, you can't have dessert after every meal. So for me personally, it's about making those good choices 80% of the time. I have very honest conversations with them. I'm not gonna lie to you. My favorite food in the whole wide world is macaroni and cheese. But I have it about 4 times a year, right? Mac Down, which we'll talk about, Thanksgiving, and then the couple of events I do leading up to Mac Down.
Yeah.
I love McDonald's French fries. I steal them from my daughter every time she goes. One of my favorite fast foods is Taco Bell. It's like a guilty pleasure, but I have it 3 times a year, right?
Yeah.
So it's not about don't do this. It's just think about your choices that you make and the effects on your body. The younger kids, the elementary school, we do talk about that, but at that age, they're not as health conscious as far as the impact that food has on their body, right? We talk about it, but it kind of just goes.
Yeah, they can't see it.
Right. Now, when they get in middle school and you get in high school, particularly the adults that we work with, I have very candid conversations. If they want to talk about their predisposition for a disease, I incorporate that with our food. Like, if you have high cholesterol, stick away from this, you need this. They don't know.
Yeah.
And having that one-on-one conversation with them, or direct conversation when they do want to talk about their predisposition or losing weight or whatever, I incorporate that into everything we do because it's so important. I went on a health journey. I have a predisposition on my mother's side of the family to coronary artery disease. And a few years ago, I realized, like, wow, I've got weight to lose. I'm pushing 50, and I just really dug into this even more than I did before, right? So I got to practice what I preach. I can't go in. And it's really changed my life. I literally just went to the doctor yesterday. I have great labs. She was like, you've got the body of a 30-year-old. You're doing things right. You do need to exercise more, and that's true. But so it's the outcome, and it's for me, for the kids, it's the long game. So all of the programs we have, Heat, Salt, Tower to Table, they are all geared around early culinary intervention, right? We want to teach these kids to cook, and that's important, right? Because there's a lot of self-confidence and that goes along with knowing that, oh my gosh, I made this, like, right? Even with adults. But it's so important to affect their food choices and have them, come to a class and say, Miss Karrie, me and my mom made this, right? And my mom didn't think she was going to like it. So it's even spilling over, right, to families. So at Do Miss Wesley, over the summer, we do summer programs with them as well. I had a mom, we did an air fryer chicken. And again, so impressed. They had the option of what they wanted, their chicken plain, barbecue, and something else. I don't remember. Anyway, the kids just loved it, absolutely loved it, and were so impressed with themselves. I mean, you really didn't do anything, right? Because we just put some barbecue on some chicken, put it in. But they also know that I can use the air fryer at home, right? But the bad thing was, the next time I was there, a mom was asking for the cooking lady. I want to know where the cooking lady is. And everybody just pointed to me, and I was like, oh gosh, I do not want to be the cooking lady right now, because she looked mad at me. And so the daughter had made the baked chicken and took it at home. And so the mom was saying, I want to talk about traffic light eating. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And I explained the green light, and I said, and with the red light, we're not saying don't ever have that. We're saying stop and think about an alternative, right? And so that's what I was trying to do with the air fryer chicken, is instead of a fried chicken, how delicious and moist is this, this air fryer chicken? And you can do this, on your own, as long as you have the ingredients. And I just thought, I am in big trouble, right? And she said, well, my problem is that Wednesdays, it was a tradition of my mom's, Wednesday is fried chicken. And now I have my 8-year-old telling me I can't do fried chicken every Wednesday. Yeah. So she was like, I need some recipes for some ways to do your baked chicken. And I was like, I am happy to do it. I thought I was in big trouble with the traffic light eating, but that's a very good example of how it is impacting. It is making these kids think about their food choices, and not only that, it's spilling over at home too. Yeah. So now she does fried chicken once a month, and baked chicken the rest of the, and I'm here for that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, yeah. The adults, we need this education for sure, just as much as the kids do.
Right.
I want to talk about the Mac Down, the Mobtown Mac Down coming up. You mentioned it, your favorite food.
Yes.
So I guess How did that start? How did it start then? Did it start because of your love for mac and cheese?
It started because of my love for mac and cheese. I cannot lie, and it just gave me another excuse to eat it throughout the year. All the big cities in the South Carolina, Destin, New Orleans, they all have mac and cheese festivals, and one of the ways, being a nonprofit, that we generate unencumbered funds for growth, right? Because the problem that we're having right now is a good problem, but a problem nonetheless. Every time somebody tags us or posts us on social media, I have that many more schools, I have that many more community centers, I have that many more churches reaching out and saying, we want this, right? And, being just a 4-year-old nonprofit, we're getting there, right? So I don't say no. I say not quite yet, right? I'm invested where we are here and with these partners, but I want to get everywhere,
right?
And so it's like, how do you do this, right, without solely relying on grant funding and solely relying on the little bit of income we generate during the summer? We have another event that I'll talk a little bit about called Kid Chef Best on the Bay, which is a cute fundraiser. I love it. There's nothing like it on the coast, and it's growing every year. We've done that for 2 years. Mac Down started last year, and again, it started so I could eat mac and cheese, but also it generates funds. That 100% of the proceeds go back to the Cookery Project for us to reach all the new places and have all the nonprofit partnerships for us to expand our early culinary intervention.
Yeah.
I consider it a great success. We sold about 400 tickets last year. We had 14 teams. So the cool thing about Mac Down is we have kids teams. So we have an overall category. It's every man for himself. It's done by blind judging, and we also have People's Choice. So the People's Choice have kids categories, and then teams. And kids teams are have to be under the age of 16, I think, and there has to be at least 2 kids. So the winners last year were actually 2 13-year-olds won the entire event.
Really? That's really cool.
Yes. 2 13-year-olds won. I mean, they swept it.
Wow.
But they're kids that cook with us every summer. And they won Best Mac and Cheese overall. They won Best Overall People's Choice and Best Kids Team.
Man, that's incredible. Yeah, they swept it.
and they did it. And so the one thing that we let our teams do is make whatever pasta noodle, macaroni noodle, that can all be done ahead of time. But all the cooking that day has to be done there. And we actually ended up having 2 kids teams. And some of I told the adults, I was like, it's all fair game. Like, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, these kids have cooked with us for a long time. We've made this. We've done all the things. So, like, don't get your feelings hurt.
Yep.
If
you got to show up.
You got to show up. So it's a great event. We hope to grow it. We are in the process of actually rebranding to Gulf Coast Mac Down. We've moved it to Brookley Field so that we can reach both sides of the bay.
Okay.
We already have teams from both sides of the bay. We have some great sponsors. Spire's our presenting sponsor. Alabama Orthopedic Group is our entrance sponsor. And also bringing the teams, and I mean, they are serious about their mac and cheese.
Yeah.
So in addition to mac and cheese, endless tasting of macaroni and cheese, which I never get tired of, we have what we call Smack Row, and it is a row of being a foodie, being just a lover of all things Mobile and all the great culinary things going on in the city. and being a nonprofit, I like to promote, right? Use this as an opportunity for vendors to come and do samplings, sell their wares, as long as it's, food, kitchen related. So we invite all of our local restaurants, local cottage makers, indie bakers, farmers to come, because it just adds another element.
Very cool. Yeah,
to the event. We have big hit last year. We had laser tag. We're bringing laser tag again.
Awesome.
Gaming truck was a huge hit.
Oh, that's definitely a big one.
And this year we're going to have a little obstacle course. So it's pet friendly. It's just a great, just family oriented. Come bring your lawn chairs for the day. It's from 11 to 4. Great music. My favorite DJ Ferg, she does all the good music, and I worked really hard last year. It was the first one. It was my baby, but I still managed to have a really good time. And we have a lot more people involved in putting it on, and people know a little bit more what to expect this year. So I hope to have more fun. But the greatest thing about the event last year, and I'm sure it will be this year, is we have a contest called the McCheesy, and it's we have 2 categories: kids category and adults categories, and the winner wins prizes. Last year we had Publix gift card and some King Arthur Flour gift cards and other food related gifts, and so the first person to eat a half pound of macaroni and cheese. So the first person to just finish it. So we had a handful of kids, and the smallest of all of the kids smoked the other kids. I mean, just smoked them. I felt a little bad. That's a lot of mac and cheese, so we might lower it. One boy actually got sick. And
see how fast you can eat maybe a certain amount.
And I felt really bad. He was sick. And then for the adults, we had, I think, 4 or 5 females and 1 male, and the smallest female of all of them. One of our sponsors is Rich's Car Wash as well. They're one of our big cheese sponsors. It happened to be one of their employees, and so I challenge everybody this year to come see if you can beat Lauren's from Rich's Car Wash, because she smoked.
That's funny.
She just, you never think it's the person. You think
it's always like that, isn't it? Yep.
So that was the highlight of my day for sure.
So it's going to be October 28th. At 23 East, that's over at Brookley.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I'm going to be there too. So what are some of the teams that are going to be, any local restaurants or anybody like that we would know?
No local restaurants, and I get it. It's really hard for a chef to be out of the kitchen on the weekend, right? But we have a lot more kids teams this year. Alabama Orthopedic Group says they're bringing it. I'm not sure. There used to be a mac and cheese years ago, and they won it every year. So they're challenging everybody.
Okay.
Of course, we've got the Bronneronis that won last year. The 2 13-year-olds. I think they're both 14 now. Coming back, AT&T. They did really good. Hall Sausage. Miss Deborah Hodges with Halls, she actually won the meat category, so she had her sausage in her macaroni and cheese. Yep. And she was a very close second. Tony Tejas Salsa won our vegan category last year. So a lot of good local teams, and but we challenge these restaurants locally. Mama's has good macaroni and cheese. If you want to put it to the test, this is the time to do it.
Yeah,
but
see it.
Don't get your feelings hurt if you lose to a couple kids, because they've got mad skills. So another fundraiser that we have is Kid Chef Best on the Bay, and each year we pair local celebrity chefs, because they are celebrities to these kids, with 4 of our kid chefs that sign up. And we had that this year also at 23 East, and One of our biggest supporters is Arwen Rice with Red or White. We had Wade Price from Slurp Society, Jonathan Murray, who is a private chef and a wood artisan. He makes beautiful woodwork, but it's a blind taste challenge, but it's really just a mystery basket. But it's only a mystery basket for the kids, right? So they don't know what they're gonna make.
Okay.
So I plan ahead of time with the chefs something that is on brand for them, or a specialty dish for them. And so that we can make sure we have everything they need. And the kids cook along with the chef. And I say celebrity chef because, I fangirl over them, right? But then also these kids, what a huge honor. So, and it's really cool. So Wade, of course, did ramen. And a lot of these kids had never made or even eaten ramen.
Yeah.
So one of the kids on his team is now, every special event he has, he wants to go have ramen with Chef Wade. And I have a mom, so this kind of leads to, we challenge their palates, right? When kids cook, they're invested, right? So they'll try it. So I have one special mom. Her son started cooking with me because he had a couple of things he would eat, and that is it, right? So he competed with Chef Wade, and now he's a ramen boy, right?
That's funny.
And his mom will text me every once in a while. For his birthday, he had a whole taco bar. This kid would eat nothing but cheeseburgers and French fries, right? So I love it when the parents are like, "Look what we're doing!"
Absolutely, yeah. He's branching out.
So it expands their palate. It makes them curious. When they cook it, they're invested, so they try it. And I always strive to pick recipes that will challenge them, something I know they probably don't eat regularly, something that includes a vegetable or a healthy ingredient that, again, makes them think outside of their usual box. And and sometimes it's a hard no, and I take it, but more times than not, it's oh my gosh, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like making a dip, and scoop it with cucumber instead of French fries, kind of thing. So it's just instilling those habits with them, and just the repetitive. That's why we like going back and returning and having these partners that we're just working with constantly to just reiterate. So I do want to say, for Kid Chef Best on the Bay, with the restaurant, we're just very grateful for our chefs that support Kid Chef Best on the Bay, because they're leaving their kitchen on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
That's a huge ask, right? And so we are very grateful for the restaurants and the chefs that support what we're doing and invest their time with us.
When will that be in 2024?
It's going to be in March.
Okay.
Don't have a solid date.
Okay.
But it's going to be in March. It's going to be at 23 East again. Great venue.
Yeah, it's a great. I love it. I love going
Great
there.
to work with. It was a little hotter this March.
Yeah.
It was a little hot in there with all them cooking, but we're going to order some better weather for next year.
That's right. What's your future plans for the Cookery Project? Your long-term vision?
My long-term vision for the Cookery, I have been working really hard the last 2 years to kind of solidify where we want to be, kind of making Mobile, where our kitchen is in Wilmer Hall. Again, big supporter of us, and we're grateful for the space. Is to use what we're doing here in Mobile as a benchmark, right, for how we want to move to Baldwin County, how we want to move into the Mississippi Gulf Coast, how we want to move.
Yes, next place.
In the Southeast,
yeah.
Honestly. We have a couple of really good instructors. It is really a very difficult skill set to find somebody that is uber organized, that loves to cook, and can recover a recipe, because sometimes we put 2 tablespoons of salt instead of 1 teaspoon, right?
Yep.
So you gotta kind of be able to think quickly on your feet, and how can we fix this? What can we add? Because there is nothing worse than a child disappointed in what they've made, right? When theirs doesn't look like somebody else's. And then to find somebody that loves kids, right?
Yep.
So that's been the biggest challenge, is seeking those people out that have those skill sets, so that their experience, whether I'm teaching the class or Miss Kendra's teaching the class or Miss Stephanie's teaching the class, that they're all getting the same experience. My goal is just to reach more kids, right? And I can't do it by myself. So.
Yeah, this has been so informative and so entertaining too.
But
I said this has been so entertaining. It's been so informative. Everything that you said, I love what you're doing. Before we get out of here, I wanted to. Our next segment of the show is called Meat and Three. So we've already gotten into the meat of the podcast. So now I have 3 questions that I wanted to ask you. 3 burning questions.
Okay.
So if you're really impressing some out of town guests, where are you taking them to in Mobile?
Red or white?
Yeah.
That's actually a very funny question, because I have a cousin that lives in Boca Raton, Florida, and her daughter plays tennis, and I was, number one, shocked to learn that Mobile has the best tennis center.
Right, in the
best
country,
tennis center in the country.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. I don't play tennis. I don't know a whole lot about it. I like to watch it. And when she comes, that is all they want, is red or white.
That's funny.
And I mean, I've taken her to I take her to all the places, and she loves she said the food in Mobile is better than in Boca Raton.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good compliment.
You're lying. She's like, no. She was like, we store calories for days so that we can come eat. But she does not leave Mobile without having
that's awesome.
Red or white.
That's awesome. What are some of your favorite places that you go to? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Can you name one for each?
Breakfast, pretty consistent. I love Ruby Slipper. I like Bistro St. Emmanuel. Those are probably my top 2. Lunch. Wish Red or White did lunch, but they don't. I've tried. I would say, again, you're gonna have to edit it. The Cheese Cottage. I just like the outdoor. I like the laid back. The last time I was there, Simone French was singing. I could have sat there all day long. Dinner, red or white. I love Chuck's Fish. Dinner's hard. I love food. It's hard to pick, and it really just depends on my mood. I like to go to restaurants that provide good service, just number one. The food doesn't have to be astounding and amazing and tickle your taste buds all the time, but I like consistent.
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of start to separate some from the other ones. I want a good, consistent,
phenomenal service really can put you over the top when it comes to...
It really can put you
your dining experience.
But it could also...
Yeah, it really can.
It could put a bad taste in your mouth. And I do have to put a shout out. It's not in Mobile, but one of my top favorite restaurants that I've eaten at in all times, and I've traveled many times to Europe, all over the U.S., is Coastal Alabama.
Yeah, okay.
Coastal is so good.
Yeah. Great
service, beautiful views, and the food is phenomenal. Again, out of our service area.
Yeah, that was actually my next question, was going to be a restaurant outside of Mobile, but within driving distance. So
Coastal.
All right, so I'll ask you another one then. So you've done you mentioned a lot of traveling. What's another food city that you like to go to?
New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's my top.
Yeah, and just short drive.
Short drive.
What about in Biloxi, where you're from?
Mary Mahoney's.
Mm-hmm.
right there on the beach. It's a Southern classic, best seafood, great service. The food is consistently good. I'm a seafood girl. I was raised in Biloxi, spent a lot of time in Ocean Springs. My family owned Ocean Springs Seafood before Hurricane Katrina. So when I was in college and everybody was eating the poor college food, I was eating crab meat, stuffed potatoes, and all that good stuff. So I tend to favor anything seafood. Funny story about Mary Mahoney's. When I was growing up, when we would, as a teenager and a young adult, when we would go out after the night, they used to have a carriage house that stayed open 24 hours a day. So our late night food was shrimp po' boys, crab meat po' boys, crab claws,
that's some fancy late night
beignets. I mean, and then I come to Mobile and we have Awful Waffle, and I'm like, where do you guys eat? So, but shout out to Awful Waffle. I love them now, but it was a culture shock. I mean, I was like, we have all the food, and and then next thing I know,
that's hard to live up to, though.
I'm eating
that's high standards.
Grits and scrambled eggs, but I adjusted and I made it.
The last segment of the show is called Chris's Dishes, and that's where I talk about the best dish that I've had lately. And I'll turn it over to you if you've had a dish that you've had lately that you want to shout out from a restaurant. You can. But mine is from Callahan's, and I went a couple weeks ago to Callahan's, and I had the bacon cheeseburger, just the classic, just the iconic burger of Mobile, with the lettuce and the mayonnaise and the tomato, all that. I mean, it's so good. It's just. You can eat it a million times. It just never gets old.
Well, Callahan's is another one of those. Again, I tend to. They're consistent.
You
got good service, and you're getting good food every time you go there.
And I don't know. I love the mayonnaise. The mayonnaise really distinguishes that burger to me. I think that maybe to some of the other burgers that are popular in Mobile, but so
interesting.
I like that one. That's a good one.
Okay.
What about you? Have you had a dish lately that you have enjoyed?
The best crab claws I've ever put in my mouth, Coastal.
Okay, all right.
I mean, like I would literally, they're just they're out there. They're huge. They're perfectly cooked. But that's not really a dish. That's an appetizer. Let me think. What's the best dish I've had?
While you're thinking, I've had several people mention Coastal. I haven't been, but I've had several people mention to me about how phenomenal it was.
It is,
and how good it is.
I love the
get
Gulf,
over there.
Right?
Yeah.
Gulf, I think to me is a good lunch spot. Coastal is a good dinner spot. Mm-hmm. Best dish I've had lately.
Yeah, the Gulf has a good environment. Good setting.
Yeah, and
family friendly,
good consistent food.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to say, I'm showing all my favoritism here. I'm gonna have to say Miss Arwen Rice's brisket.
Yeah, okay.
I love her brisket board, and that's the most
I've
recent
had that one.
thing
That's a good
I've
one.
had.
That's so good. Yeah. Love that brisket board at Red or White. Yep. That's good.
That's a winner for me.
I like it. That's a good one.
I'm just super excited about Mobile's food scene.
Yeah.
I'd say, maybe in the last 10 years, it's just...
Yeah, it's night and day from 10 years ago, right?
It's up there, right? Like, I get just as excited going to eat somewhere here as I do when I'd have to drive to go to New Orleans or go back to Mississippi and have Mary Mahoney's.
Yeah, just think 10 more years from now, I think.
Yeah.
And more and more people are finding out about it, so I know it's exciting. It's an exciting time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a fun one.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, so you got to go to the Mobtown Mac Down coming up October 28th. You can get your tickets. I guess you could just search Mobtown Mac Down.
Mobtown Mac Down.
Be the first thing that shows up.
.com. Yep.
Okay, there you go. Yep. All right, sounds good. And well, I hope to be there too. And I know that my daughter is a huge mac and cheese fan, so she's going to enjoy that one too.
We can be friends.
Yep. Y'all definitely would. Yep. She loves to eat too. She's a little foodie. She's a little foodie.
I wonder where she gets it.
That's a totally different podcast. I got to get her on the podcast too. I think that'd be a fun one.
Oh, you should. She's so cute.
Well, thank you.
She's got a lot of personality.
Well, thank y'all. Thank you for coming, Karrie. Thank y'all for listening to the Port City Plate podcast. Excited about the book launch coming up too. We got October 23rd, Haunted Bookshop. Got a new book coming out, the culinary history of Mobile. So excited about that. And but I'll be updating y'all on that too. But thank y'all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.